Mikey and Christa, after having regained their senses from seeing the most handsome man ever, then headed back to run-of-the-mill pizza to check on Leo. But when they had gotten there, they had noticed Leo was chatting with Hueso and Captain Pyle, much to their shock.
"It's Captain Pyle!"
Mikey shrieked as he and Christa immediately jumped at him. Both Hueso and Leo immediately started shouting at them to stop. Wait! Leo shouted, opening a portal to catch them and make them land on the ground. He's gone straight. There's nothing to worry about. Hueso's brother is going squeaky clean.
"Brother?"
Christa and Mikey said together. That's right, Captain Pyle replied. And we were able to pull off quite the trick to escape Big Mama's auction house. You might have seen it, he said, winking.
Wait, so the guy carrying Leo was... Oh.
Christa muttered.
"I don't know how to feel now,"
Mikey squeaked. The two immediately shook all the thoughts they deemed gross out of their heads. It was then that Leo and Mikey's soft-shell brother Donatello came in.
Well, he's not immediately trying to kill Leo. That's a plus.
Christa half-joked. I told him I had a peace offering, Leo replied. You mean the gross, disgusting bird pouch? This supposed paradise? Somehow I'm skeptical, Nardo, Donnie asserted just before Leo picked him up. Then immediately Donnie began thrashing. Unhand me! He screamed. Okay, Leo replied, stuffing him into the pouch of a Simurg, which was a huge blue cassowary-like yokai. Leo took the pizza and followed them in. Christa and Mikey watched as the bird pecked at the food that had been put out for them. You were right, Leo, they suddenly heard Donnie say. This Joey pouch is divine, he said contentedly. Pizza? They heard Leo ask Donnie. Ew, Hawaiian? Donnie groaned. Just eat it, you weirdo, Leo snapped.
I give them an hour,
Christa muttered to Mikey, who chuckled.
"Oh no, I've seen this before. I give them 11 minutes.
He boasted.
Alrighty.
Christa replied.
You let me know how it goes, and I'll go see about other seasonal pizzas.
You do that,
Mikey replied, watching the Simurg as more arguing from his brothers that he began to hear from inside the bird started up. Christa, meanwhile, was looking at the menu, stared at the one picture of a pizza with mushrooms, sausage, and a little yellow fruit cubes.
Why does he even have that anyway?
Christa huffed in wonder. It was then she saw a large flower. It had many small, weirdly shaped blossoms that had ends in the shape of pitcher plants. It was mostly a bright purple and red with black spots. The leaves were a bit like catnip leaves. She then noticed a faint, beautiful smell. Mikey just watched, sipping a soda he had gotten, as the Simurg basically kicked him out of her pouch from the fighting and ran out toward the Maze of Doom's entrance back to the hidden city.
11 minutes! I win!
He joked at them as he gave a glazed, annoyed look. There was suddenly a loud crash, followed by a bunch of the staff running out of the kitchen. What's going on? Leo asked. There was suddenly a lot of banging and chattering of some kind.
Wait, where's Christa?
Mikey gasped. The three turtles immediately got up and rushed over to the kitchen. There they found Christa sitting like a fox or a dog, gnawing at a glass. Christa? Donnie asked nervously. Christa's head immediately snapped over and tilted at them. She mumbled out something garbled before spitting out the glass and lunged with her mouth open and jumped at them. Leo and Mikey immediately moved out of the way as Donnie just stared at her rushing toward him as Christa leapt at him and knocked him down as she landed. She began gnawing at his battle shell. No! Get off me, crazy heathen! Donnie frantically screamed, thrashing as Leo, and Christa immediately grabbed her and began pulling her off.
Christa, what are you doing?
Mikey shouted, panicked, as Donnie's mechanical spider hands came flying out of his shell and grabbed Christa around her middle and managed to get her up in the air, before passing him to Leo, who grabbed her and tried to hold her down. Mikey then began to notice how incredibly dilated her pupils were. Their usual dark teal irises were almost completely consumed by the inky blackness of the very spaced-out pupils. Why is she like this? Is there a mystic gas leak? Leo grunted, trying to hold the shoulder of the now cackling, shrieking fox girl, thrashing before suddenly launching himself from their grip and flew right out into the dining room of the restaurant. Christa, with her tail up spiked out like a large ghost flame thanks to the ice blue tip, was currently skittering around, yelling like a caffeinated gremlin, and even climbing around the walls on all fours, much like that one movie with the creepy girl. The customers were screaming in terror and fleeing the restaurant, as Hueso and Peel were trying to catch her.
How did she end up like this?
Hueso cried as Christa ran under a nearby wine cupboard.
Oh no, the flower from my wife. It must be Foxnip.
He groaned, realizing his mistake.
Well, at least I can't get blamed for this,
Peel said in relief.
No, but you can be blamed for smarmy comments. I need help.
Hueso growled as Peel nodded in understanding, a bit surprised by his brother's glare. Mikey had already followed Christa into the wine area and peeked underneath the cabinet.
Christa?
He asked, seeing her with large eyes blinking at him before screeching again and rushing into him and sending poor Mikey up into the air from the impact before running out of the restaurant into New York City.
Oh my gosh, she's loose in the city!
Mikey cried.
Oh, those poor humans,
Peel muttered. We gotta catch her before she gets hurt, Leo added. Or taken by scientists. Mikey gasped and was immediately out the door before any of them could formulate a plan. Mikey immediately looked around desperately trying to find Christa, but she seemed to already be miles away.
How does a fox trying to move like a roach run that fast?
Mikey groaned. There was suddenly screaming and crashing. Mikey gasped and pulled on his hoodie before following the carnage to see the nearby street with a bunch of scarred, horrified pedestrians. He also noticed that a bunch of the signs, people's clothing, and even bits of wood and metal had all been bitten into. Fortunately, no one seemed to be hurt, as Mikey gasped, plastering himself back against the corner he had been peeking around.
Christa!
He gasped. He didn't have much of a choice but following the carnage as he quickly ducked around police interviewing people. He soon saw a trail of bitten trash cups and cabbages littering the ground, following by a chittering sound ahead and a blur of white rush away. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, the foot leaders began making their way down the street. Brute was looking over a brochure.
Hey, you want to go apple picking in a couple of weeks, just the two of us?
Brute asked.
In a couple of weeks, we have a mission,
Lieutenant noted. Brute huffed.
I know, but things are slow and the kids can handle looking around and getting info while we're gone for the weekend. It's not like they're gonna find anything major while we're gone with the way things are.
Yeah.
Shouted a voice as the two immediately looked down at their feet.
Isn't that the fox mutant the turtles are friends with? Except her breath reeks of foxnip, which actually kind of explains the lack of thought.
Brute asked.
Indeed,
Lieutenant muttered, the gears in his head turning before he smiled.
We could take advantage of this,
he noted as he began to reach for her.
Come here, little girl.
Yeah.
Immediately, Christa clamped her full jaw right over his right hand, sinking into his thumb and wrists. The foot lieutenant winced before letting out a shriek that sounded normal as opposed to his raspy, whispery voice. Ah! Hearing this scream aside from Ground Zero was all of Central Park. Raph, who was currently lifting weights, Splinter, who screamed at the air to keep it down. The scream had even reached the ears of several deer who had gathered around Todd, as well as the yokai city Oaishu off the coast of Japan.
Get her off!
Lieutenant shouted, flailing his arm around and running in circles, as the foot brute tried to catch him to help.
Get her off! Get her off! She's bad for my tendons!
The screaming had attracted Mikey, who gasped upon arriving and seeing this.
Get away from her!
Mikey shouted, wrapping up the lieutenant in his chains before trying to get Christa off of him, only for her to run away.
Christa!
He shouted, immediately throwing the two away with his nunchucks, as they screamed, flying over Donnie and Leo, as Mikey continued chasing after Christa, who immediately started climbing and biting up and down nearby several buildings on her way toward a grocery store. What does she even see in that baked brain of hers right now? Leo asked, portaling after her, with Mikey behind him as Donnie was using his jetpack to fly after Christa as she crashed into a West Side market. What she saw was all the foodstuffs dancing to the beat of celebration, spitting and singing and calling to her.
Celebrate good times! Come on, let's celebrate!
They all sang to her as the confetti danced around her, singing with the food on the shelves and the sun glowing brightly with a big toothy smile behind it all. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. We're gonna have a good time tonight. It's okay. It's all right. Sang some Parmesan cheese. It's up to you. What's your pleasure? Christa's eyes just got bigger in response to that.
Alfredo!
She screamed, charging forward just as the three turtles arrived. Seeing her immediately dive into the cereal display, she even bit into the boxes. She immediately spat them out.
Yucky, Alfredo!
She shouted, gremlin running down the hall, as Mikey managed to grab her tail again, holding on for dear life as she ran up and down the shelves and walls. Mikey screamed, trying not to let go as much as he could.
Christa, you gotta calm down!
Mikey cried.
Alfredo!
She shouted in response. Donnie watched this go by as Leo was trying to get her to run into one of his portals back to the lair, only for her to jump and miss constantly. Michael, calling to her clearly won't work. She's as high as... Fakes! Shouted a brutish Cockney accent. There was also a loud crash. Immediately, the two rushed over to the source of the sound. Mikey was gripping Christa's jaw, now muttering apologies as she managed to pry her off of the head of some large guy who Leo was pretty sure was meat sweats in a large hoodie. However, she quickly bit down on the hood, and the weight of both her and Mikey had ripped it clean off, revealing both meat sweats' head and all the puncture wounds from Christa's teeth he now had. The large pig mutant immediately turned to Christa, who was struggling to get out of Mikey's grip, that he had finally wrapped his arms around her and tried to keep her still. He was glaring at them hatefully, as his rage made blood drip down his face a little.
Time to see if dog meat in bossy tang soup can be substituted with fox meat.
Meat Sweat snarled.
Wait, it was an accident. She's not even herself right now. And that's cannibalism. Any way you slice it. Do you think I care, you little runt?
Meat Sweat snarled at Mikey, then lifting up his hammer as Christa kept her mouth wide open for it. But Leo was quick to put a portal between them, causing Meat Sweat's large hammer to go crashing into his head instead. He groaned as Christa got away.
Christa!
Mikey cried as Meat Sweats groaned. However, Donnie had thrown one of his orb catchers that immediately held her in place, as Mikey immediately summoned chains to pin it in place. He then turned to Meat Sweats, who was dizzy with a glare of his own, before jumping back and retracting into a shell and slamming into the pig mutant's gut to send him flying through the wall and into the air, where he squealed, flying rapidly until his momentum crawled to a stop, causing him to land where Mikey had sent the foot leaders to land from earlier, as Meat Sweats crashed into the ground beside them in a dumpster, legs straight up in the air.
So, was your flight fox and turtle related?
Mikey had been sitting beside Christa, who had finally exhausted herself all the way to the med bay. According to Peel, there wasn't much that they could do until the fox nib worked itself out of her system. Eventually, her fur had stopped being all puffy and began to smooth itself out and became normal again. Mikey found himself nodding off, and when he heard Christa groaning and gasped, looking over to her to see her sitting up and rubbing her head.
I've got the pounding headache, and my mouth tastes and feels like I bit everything in New York.
She groaned.
Well, I don't know about all of New York, but you did put a lot of things and people in there,
Mikey said sheepishly.
Don't worry about work. Hueso gave you a few days off paid.
Okay, great. But what happened? Last thing I remember is sniffing that flower Hueso had. And then, it's all a blur. I tasted iron and saw singing foodstuffs.
She asked, confused.
It's kind of a long story. The short form of it is, Foxnip makes anything even resembling a fox go a bit crazy. And hungry, apparently.
Mikey explained.
I'm hungry still.
Christa groaned.
I can make you something with all this Alfredo stuff,
Mikey replied. Christa gripped his hands and smiled brightly.
Please?
She begged.
Of course.
Mikey promised heading out to make something, or maybe at least get some fresh Alfredo sauce he had seen in the destroyed grocery store.